Let's see if I can get this chair up a little bit higher. I think that would be good if I could get this chair to go up a little bit higher. Let's see if I can. No, don't you love chairs like this? Oh well, that's what you're getting. You're getting me down low. So there you go. Welcome, 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 everybody. Glad you are with us today. It is a lovely afternoon. I am sitting here and I'm happy to engage with you. Let me apologize for the delay. Originally, this live was supposed to start much earlier, but there was breaking news. And as a reporter, it is my responsibility to report on that breaking news. So obviously, I was pulled elsewhere. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. Please do. And yes, glad you're with us. I'll do some opening remarks, some initial opening remarks, very off the cuff today. And then from there, we will jump into our roll call, and then I'll answer your super chat questions. And when your super chat questions are done, then we're done. And that'll be our lovely Tuesday afternoon conversation. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Very good, very, very good. At some point, you may hear me opening new cans of unnamed diet beverage. I'm starting out with water. I've had a little bit too much caffeine today. So I've got some ice water in this cup, but I do have a cup with ice in it next to it. And at some point, you'll probably hear me I'll just do it right now. That's me opening a new can of unnamed diet beverage and pouring it. So the reason that I was a little bit delayed in doing this live is because something very important happened. Joe Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin had their first official phone call. And on that phone call, a very good thing happened, which is they agreed to extend the START Treaty. Do folks know what the START Treaty is? The New START Treaty was one of the nuclear agreements that was signed at the end of the Cold War that restricts the number of nuclear weapons, and also restricts the number of nuclear deployment systems that the United States and Russia have. It basically prevents a new arms race from breaking out. And they did agree on this phone call to extend the New START Treaty, which I think is a great development. Good news for the whole human race, I think. So, yes, Putin and Joe Biden spoke. There was a bit of a contrast. And I saw the super chat. I'm writing it down. Just keep the super chats rolling in. I'll just keep writing them down. There was a bit of a contrast, I guess you could say, between the way the phone call was reported in Russia and reported by the Kremlin and the way the White House described it. The Kremlin emphasized that it's a big victory, that the New START Treaty has been signed. There won't be a new arms race. Trump let the INF short-range nuclear treaty expire. He let the Clear Skies Agreement expire. And the fact that on February 5th, it appears there's going to be an extension of the START Treaty and not a new arms race between the USA and Russia, that's a good thing. Now, Biden and the White House emphasized that they talked about holding Putin accountable, holding Russia accountable for malign activities. And they also emphasized that they were raising the case of Alexei Navalny, this ethno-nationalist dissident who's getting a lot of play in Western media for destabilizing Russia with riots and such. So, there's differing interpretations, I guess, of the phone call in terms of emphasis. But it appears that the New START Treaty will be renewed. And so February 5th won't be the beginning of a new arms race between the USA and Russia. So that's a good thing. I think that's a very, very good development. And that's what I was reporting on. And that's why I had to delay the phone call. So glad you all could be with us. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. Be sure to hit the notifications bell. Now I'm drinking unnamed diet beverage. And I see Kyla is asking me, can you talk about the position of the left on Eastern Europe, Belarus, Ukraine, and Russia versus USA? Sure, Kyla, I can talk about that. Left, Belarus, Russia, Ukraine, USA. So, William Z. Foster said Alexander Hamilton wanted a lifetime appointment to the Senate. All right, Foster on Hamilton. Very important. All righty, folks. So I wanted to also talk about on here, if you are part of the left-wing internet universe, I'm sure you have all heard about Jimmy Dore again. I love Jimmy Dore. Let me just say, I love Jimmy Dore. I think Jimmy Dore is amazing. He is excellent. He is anti-imperialist when it comes to Syria. You know, he is, you know, I mean, and, you know, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. You know, it happened the same way it happened last time. Right? So I watch a lot of Jimmy Dore's videos. I follow him on social media. He's retweeted me, and he's said many times he wants to have me on the show, which, hey, anytime. You know, apparently he and Steph both watch me. They'd love to have me on. So, hey, you know, that's great. Thank you, Eduardo, for your super chat. That's great. You know, I would go on the Jimmy Dore show. I would love to do that. So, you know, my direct messages are open. My email is open. So let's set it up anytime. I'm a fan of Jimmy Dore. I have been. And so, you know, just like a couple weeks ago, I'm on Twitter and I see trending, you know, in the section on Twitter that says trending, I see Jimmy Dore's name. And I thought, is that trending for me? Because I look at a lot of Jimmy Dore's stuff. Taft-Hartley. All right. Taft-Hartley labor. And, you know, I look at a lot of Jimmy Dore's stuff, but it wasn't just trending for me. It was trending on all of Twitter. All of politics Twitter was trending with Jimmy Dore. And the last time this was happening, they were all calling out Jimmy Dore for how dare he, you know, how dare he, you know, demand that AOC take Medicare for all to a vote. How dare he do that? And now, this time, the hubbub against Jimmy Dore was that he interviewed one of these Bugaloo boys. This is a libertarian militia group. You know, I don't really know much about them. They wear Hawaiian shirts and they have guns, and some of them are extreme right-wingers and some of them are libertarians, and I don't know much about them. And so it was condemnation of Jimmy Dore for having dared bring a Bugaloo boy onto his program, and we were all supposed to hate Jimmy Dore. Well, you know, this Bugaloo boy who was on Jimmy Dore's program said he was against racism, said he was pro-LGBT, that he wasn't straight himself, and that he supported Black Lives Matter. Now, there's some people who've come out and said, well, the Bugaloo boys, they don't all think that. Well, look, okay, there's a couple layers to this, right? Because just like last time when they're going after Jimmy Dore for this, it's unacceptable. I mean, it's like 2 minutes hate. Someone's name is trending on Twitter, and we're all supposed to hate them with a passion. Let's talk about the layers to this, okay? First things first. Maybe you don't think what Jimmy Dore did was right? Now, I don't disagree with Jimmy Dore. I actually think it was a very good interview he did. But put that aside for a moment. Let's assume that you think Jimmy Dore was absolutely wrong to do that interview. Okay, let's just assume that you're one of the people that says, never talk to the right, never talk to a Trump supporter. Okay, let's pretend for a moment that you're one of those, okay? If you're one of those people, then you would think Jimmy Dore is wrong. And that's your right. You're allowed to think Jimmy Dore is wrong. So what? You know, I mean, he can be wrong. Someone can do something that you disagree with and still be a good person. Someone can do something you disagree with and still not be a Nazi and not be a fascist. But oh, no. If you read what was trending on social media, Jimmy Dore, Nazi, red, brown, crypto, white supremacist, it was like the most over-the-top thing. And it's like, okay, so first of all, assuming, you know, that they have this issue, you know, if you're on the left and Jimmy Dore's on the left, you can say, you know, I don't approve of what Jimmy Dore did, but you don't have to, you know, everyone you disagree with is not a secret Nazi, okay? Everyone you disagree with is not the equivalent of Adolf Hitler. Everyone you disagree with is not the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. Right? If I didn't work with people with whom I disagree, I would never work with anybody. Every disagreement among leftists comes with a label, right? If somebody disagrees with you about some aspect of the trans issue, it's not that you disagree with them. That person becomes a transphobe, and they must be canceled and no one should ever speak to them. If someone disagrees with you about an aspect of racial issues, right? They don't agree with one thing or another. It's not that they're just wrong. They're a racist and they must be canceled. And if someone disagrees with you about some aspect of feminism, which keep in mind, there's a lot of disagreements among feminists nowadays. They are not all on the same page about a lot of things. But if you disagree with somebody about some aspect of feminism, you become a sexist and a male show. I mean, this is toxic, okay? I work with all kinds of people with whom I disagree about lots of things, right? If you know, I like China. I think China is a force for good in the world. Maybe you don't. That's fine. We can agree to disagree about that. I don't think you're an anti-China CIA shill just because you disagree with China. I think you might be wrong. And you don't have to think I'm a fascist apologist for a repressive... How about we just disagree? Whatever happened to just plain disagreement among leftists, right? You think this, I think this. We don't agree on that. But you think this and you think this, and we agree on this. So let's work together around this thing we agree on. Whatever happened to that? Whatever happened to that? Folks, yesterday I was on a great web conference put on by the Workers' Party of the United Kingdom, of Great Britain. Jyoti Brar was on there. Peter Lavelle, the host of Crosstalk on RT, was on there. Tim Anderson, the professor from Australia, he was on there. It was a great call. Do I agree with everyone who was on that call? No, I don't. No, I don't. I don't agree with multiple people on that call. Did that stop me from getting on that call to talk about the vitally important issue of people dying and being bombed and killed by Saudi Arabia in Yemen? No, it didn't. I want to stop what the Saudis are doing to the people of Yemen. And in order to get real political change, sometimes you have to sit down with people you don't agree with. And sometimes you have to find common ground with people with whom you disagree. That's just basic politics. That is just basic politics. Sometimes you have to sit in the same room with somebody who has views on some issue you might consider to be reprehensible. Sometimes why have we lost this? So if you don't agree with Jimmy Dore doing that interview, don't agree with Jimmy Dore doing that interview. That doesn't make him Hitler. Doesn't make him a Nazi. It means he did an interview you don't agree with. Now, why has that been lost? Why does everyone jump to these folks, I'm married, okay? If every time my wife and I didn't agree about something, we got divorced, we would get divorced 3 times a day. Part of being married is you'll learn to work with people and their differences. I mean, this is just basic human relationships. Have these people ever had a friend before? If someone calls for unity against a common foe, which is the capitalist class, that we should be reaching out to them. I agree, David, and I'm going to write that down. Unity against common foe. Right? So first of all, if you don't agree with Jimmy Dore doing that interview, you don't have to hate Jimmy Dore. CPI. Do you have to be... Right? You don't have to hate Jimmy Dore just because you disagree with him. Second of all, though, was that interview wrong? No. Not in my book, it wasn't wrong. In my book, I don't think there's anything wrong with Jimmy Dore talking to a young person who is in the state of Michigan and says they support Black Lives Matter, says they're for LGBT rights, says that they're against, the government that works for the corporations, and happens to be in this right-wing militia group. There's nothing wrong with talking to that person. And Jimmy Dore, he heard what the person said, and he argued with what he said. And immediately after he argued with that person, a Trotskyite from the World Socialist website, Jerry White, which I don't agree with the World Socialist website. Don't agree with Trotskyism. Don't agree with how he treated Jimmy Dore and disrespected Jimmy Dore. But you know what? That doesn't mean I hate the World Socialist website. I think that they do good work on Syria, around Julian Assange. So again, so this guest from the World Socialist website gets on with Jimmy Dore. And he gets on with Jimmy Dore, and he's supposed to talk about this strike going on, but instead he just spends the whole interview, berating Jimmy Dore. How dare he have had this bugaloo boy on his show? And it's, oh boy. I mean, the problem with the bugaloo boys, the problem with libertarians, is an ideal, and even the problem with the actual white supremacist far right at this point, the way most of the far right are operating right now, is an ideological problem. Okay? Now, obviously, people going around and committing hate crimes, that's not an ideological problem. That is not an ideological problem. If someone is committing a hate crime against people of color, someone's committing a hate crime against LGBT people or against women, that's not an ideological disagreement. At that point, people have the right to defend themselves. Any oppressed person who is under attack has the absolute right to protect themselves, to fight back, okay? No compromise on that. But if someone is walking around saying libertarian, right-wing things, the response needs to be arguing with them, needs to be winning them to a better position. And the way you do that is not by screaming at them. It's not by putting a label on them. Look, folks, everyone loves to call Trump supporters racist, and a lot of them are. But if you call a Trump supporter racist, you have accomplished absolutely nothing. I do not know anyone who has ever been in an argument with a Trump supporter and said, "You're racist." And the Trump supporter said, "Wow, by golly, I am racist. My goodness, I am going to stop supporting Donald Trump. You put this label upon me and you called me a racist, and I realized that I was in fact a racist, and on that basis I have decided to stop." That never happens. Never happens. Okay, now if you want to argue that the position that they're taking is racist, you need to demonstrate to them how it's racist and show them the implications of what they are arguing and how it has racist implications and how maybe they need to reconsider it. That's worthy. But if you just shout racist, you've accomplished nothing. You have accomplished absolutely nothing by doing that. And this bugaloo boy, it sounds like, he's a libertarian, he's an anarcho-capitalist, and he's sympathetic to the Black Lives Matter movement. He's sympathetic to LGBT rights, but he believes in this ideology called libertarianism. And this is the wildest thing, folks. I have told this story. I'm bitter about this, but this story, it just keeps coming up in my mind. Back 2008 election, there was a candidate running for office by the name of Ron Paul. Ron Paul was running for office. And on my little tiny college campus in the middle of Ohio, all these young people started supporting Ron Paul. People who were just the most normal, mainstream people were supporting Ron Paul. And some of what Ron Paul said about U.S. foreign policy was good. But I realized that Ron Paul was pushing an ideology that said capitalism is not the problem, that the USA is already a communist country, and that there's a conspiracy by the communist Illuminati, and that we need real capitalism, which means we privatize everything. And we need to get rid of every social program. And what libertarians believe is abhorrent to me. It is absolutely abhorrent to me. And I said to the communists that I was working with, we need to refute libertarianism. And they said, no, it's fine. We'll just build the movement. I said, no, you don't understand. People are waking up and turning against these wars and turning against, the system. They're waking up, and instead of becoming anti-capitalists and revolutionaries, they're becoming libertarians. And the communists said to me, oh, no. Oh, no. You just got to build the movement. Build the movement. No interest in dealing with an ideological problem. Libertarianism is an ideological problem. It pushes the idea that we need capitalism, we need cutbacks, libertarianism is an ideological threat. And I raised this with the communists. And they said, oh, it's not important. Build the movement. They just want to keep building their little anti-war rallies and, whatever. Well, now, fast forward, now there are huge libertarian and right-wing currents of the U.S. population. People who think the government is corrupt and works for big corporations. People who think that the wars are wrong. People who think that the police state is out of control. And their answer is, we need real capitalism. Oh, God. But no interest in ideology. No interest in ideology. At first, they just told me, just build the movement. Now, they just say, just cancel these people, call them racist. No, there's an ideological problem. The only way to defeat libertarianism is with ideology. You have to understand Marxism. You have to understand socialism. You have to understand what Karl Marx and Frederick Engels and all these people wrote about. You have to. And you have to be able to argue against the nonsense that libertarians say. You have to study. You have to read books. You have to engage with people. You have to know about ideas and philosophy. Build the movement, don't stop libertarianism. Build the movement, don't stop the Bugaloo Boys. And racist, fascist, don't stop the Bugaloo Boys. Racist, don't stop Alex Jones. There is an ideological problem that millions of people in the United States who used to just believe that American capitalism was the best system ever, now they wake up and they realize that capitalism is wrong, imperialism is wrong, the government is wrong, and the answer is privatize everything. And the answer is, deregulate everything. The answer is, there is a problem here. It used to be when people woke up and realized the system was bad, they automatically became revolutionary, anti-imperialists, Marxists, socialists. Now people wake up and they realize the system is bad, and especially if they live in red states, they become libertarians, Bugaloo Boys, whatever. The only way to resolve that problem is with ideological education. And part of that ideological education is going to be engagement. You're going to have to learn to argue against what these people say, which means you're going to have to actually bring your ideas to these people, tell them what you think, listen to their response, let them say what they think, and engage. If you want to refute bad ideas, you have to know what bad ideas are. You have to know what the response of the bad ideas to your ideas are. This is pretty basic. The libertarian, alt-right, Alex Jones threat is an ideological threat, and it requires an ideological solution. And build the movement, man, come to the next rally, and shut up, racist, is not going to resolve the problem. What Jimmy Dore did is exactly what people need to do. Exactly what people need to do. They need to find people that are of this viewpoint, find where there is common ground, find where there is not common ground, and engage. And that's why I debated Stefan Molyneux. That's why I debated, who else have I debated on the right? I debated Augustus Sol Invictus. I will debate the far right, and I have no problem doing it. More communists should do it. More communists should do it because they're recruiting. They're recruiting in big numbers. But the real reason, and I hate to have to be the one to tell you this, the real reason, Cultured Thug, I also debated him, thanks Dan. The real reason that most leftist groups don't want to debate the far right, the real reason, is not out of some big moral principle. You know, I always heard this when I was around the certain party I was in. You know, we never engage racists. We never engage the far right. Never. Oh, we're too good for that. We would not dignify their poison with a response. We are so pure. And bullshit. Yes, Joanne, you're right. He was pro-Medicare for all, etc. The real reason the group I was in didn't engage the far right is because the leaders of the group were dumb as a box of rocks. Okay? The people at the top of the organization were dumb as a box of rocks. They didn't know Lenin from a pipe organ. They couldn't argue for their positions at all because there was this attitude in the group that ideology and facts and history doesn't matter, and that all that matters is building protests. I was told over and over and over again that I was not a real activist because I actually knew facts and history. I was told many times that, quote, only white people are interested in this stuff. And that's why they would never debate the far right. They would never debate the far right because these people had to be at the center of attention all the time. They had to be, and that was, oh my goodness, these people had to be the center of attention all the time. If there was a rally, they were the speakers. If there was going to be a book published, they had to write it. I mean, they had to be the center of attention at all times. And they were dumb as a box of rocks. They were good at staging rallies around the latest trendy liberal cause. Whatever the latest trendy CNN, MSNBC liberal cause was, they would sit there and go, okay, how can we reserve the permit and set up a stage? And that's what they wanted. That's all they cared about. And if our organization was to actually engage and debate against right-wing ideas, they weren't going to be the star. They weren't going to be the center of attention. Somebody who actually knew their shit would have to be the center of attention, and that's why we didn't do it. And that drives me crazy. All my classmates in college were becoming libertarians and all of that, and I was alone trying to argue with them. But my organization, they did nothing about it. Why? Because we're too busy feeding the egos of some boomers. Big problem. And that's really what it gets down to. It really gets down to it. That's really what it gets down to. And it's just, they let this happen. They've let this happen. Look, the people that run, not just the group I was in, but the communist groups in the United States, they've let this happen. They said ideology isn't important. They said, only white men read books, which is a racist lie, right? People of color, read the Final Call newspaper of the Nation of Islam. It is full of facts and dates and history. Read Gerald Horne's writings. This idea that people of color are not ideological or not literate is racist and offensive, right? If a white person said that, it would be offensive. But, it's unbelievable. That is just, it's ridiculous, right? But the left has embraced movementism. And in response to that, their movement has been getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. But they're not concerned about actually getting to new people, winning them to socialism. They're concerned about being king of the protest cage. And look how important I am. I called the rally. Anyone who speaks at the rally, they got to get through me. I control the microphone and the stage. It's this most childish, pathetic situation. Meanwhile, there are millions of people across the United States who we're waking up to oppose capitalism, to oppose the system, and they adopt crazy right-wing stupid ideas. Ideology isn't important, fact isn't important. No platform, when it really gets down to it, I think what's really behind the no platform Antifa stuff, when it really gets down to it, what's behind it in essence is that the bourgeoisie supports that on some level. The bourgeoisie they see certain sections of the ruling class see the fascists as a threat to their power, right? I mean, when Hitler came to power, that was bad news for a lot of German capitalists. There were certain German capitalists who did very, very well, like Krupp and Thyssen and Hallemer Schacht. But there were some other German capitalists who really weren't happy with it. And they really weren't happy with it. And so, in the United States right now, the far right is a threat to many sections of the capitalist class. Not all of them. There are plenty of capitalists that love the far right, like my pillow, right? He loves the far right. That guy loves the far right. The pillow factory owner guy who makes my pillow, he loves the far right. Betsy DeVos, she loves the far right. But there are some other capitalists like Jeff Bezos and the Walton family, Bill Gates, who don't so much like the far right. But they really don't like communism. They really don't like socialism. They really don't like Marxism. So they want to help people to go fight the far right. They really want people to go out and fight the Boogaloo Boys and fight the Proud Boys. Oh, yep, they're all for that. But they don't want them actually preaching anything while they do it. They don't want them to actually build a left-wing movement that would actually mobilize to seize private property. They don't want them to build an actually class-conscious movement in order to defeat the right wing. So they've said, you can't engage these ideas. And I swear, it is the richest of the rich that see the far right as a threat to their power, have decided they're going to use the left as foot soldiers, but they're going to make sure they've sent the memo out that leftists are never allowed to spread their own ideas, never allowed to teach their own ideology, never allowed to explain basic Marxist ideology. That's what's going on here. That's what's going on here. Look, folks, in the Green Book, I published my own edition of Gaddafi's Green Book. Green Book. I'm just going to read to you. Thank you, Austin. I'm just going to read to you a very, very brief portion from what I wrote, because this is very, very important. I'm gonna just read you this very, very brief portion from my introduction to the Green Book, because I realized, the first time I realized that something was deeply, deeply wrong was during the Libyan War. During the Libyan War, I realized that something was deeply, deeply wrong. And I'm going to read to you what I wrote. On the day Gaddafi died, Nazgul Ring. Nazgul. Alrighty. All right. On the day Gaddafi died, October 20th, 2011, this writer was in Zuccotti Park. Occupy Wall Street was in full swing. In the park, the most prominent voices offered no sympathy for Gaddafi. The professional activists with liberal, social democratic, and anarchist perspectives, however, were not the only perspectives represented in the movement. Many young, unemployed people from across the country had come to Zuccotti Park to protest Wall Street. Midwestern and Southern youths, despite their ideologically confused and sometimes libertarian perspective, understood that Gaddafi was on their side. Among the young people in Zuccotti Park, it was well known that Gaddafi had sought to create an independent African currency, an affront to the US dollar and the Federal Reserve bankers. Cynthia McKinney's documentation of the Obama administration's lies about Libya were well known far beyond the movement because of right-wing radio host Alex Jones, who had featured McKinney on his program and given her a platform that movement programs like Democracy Now! Had not. The socialist movement in the United States, in the aftermath of the new communist movement of the 1970s, and most especially after the fall of the Soviet Union, had retreated from the broad masses of people. It occupies various safe spaces like academia, the labor bureaucracy, and middle-class pockets within the urban centers. It has come to see the broad masses of people as its enemy, and populism, i.e. attempts to mobilize the broad masses of people, as a great danger. However, the history of the socialist movement in the United States tells a very different story. The strength of Eugene Debs and the Socialist Party, the Communist Party, USA, and the Black Panther Party was their ability to mobilize millions of people around a socialist program designed to improve living conditions and meet the needs of the people. Socialists did not become strong by embedding themselves among liberal activists, but by going directly to the masses and providing aid and leadership amid times of economic hardship. Leftist politics, where it has been successful in places like Libya, has always been populist in its orientation. Marx wrote about the proletariat and its struggle to seize control of the means of production from the bourgeoisie and organize the economy to serve public good rather than profits. The strength of communists has always been their ability to organize the most downtrodden in society by emphasizing class solidarity. Communists opposed racism with the slogan, "Black and white, unite and fight." Communists were able to win millions of white workers to oppose Jim Crow segregation during the 1930s by explaining that racism hurt all working people and was a tool of the capitalist bosses. Communists did not speak of shaming and punishing those who held white privilege, but rather of the need to raise up all working people, giving special attention and priority to those who faced the greatest discrimination. I realize this. Why was it in Zuccotti Park that all the professional socialists, all the professional organizers with George Soros and the NGOs, all the, anarcho-liberal types were celebrating the death of Gaddafi? But all these confused Alex Jones libertarian kids from the Midwest were mourning Gaddafi's death. Why was that? Well, because the left in the United States has been co-opted and manipulated. Meanwhile, a lot of people that actually understand, who the enemy is, have an ideological confusion. We need to build a real Marxist left in the United States. We absolutely have to get out of this absolute mess, right? That because Marxism has turned its back on the broad masses of people and retreated into safe spaces like college campuses and academia and the labor bureaucracy, and because of the fact that millions of Americans are angry at the system and ready to fight, the libertarian current has the upper hand. The libertarian current, many young people who get mad at capitalism become libertarians. They don't become Marxists. And it is our job to change that. It is our duty to reverse that trend. No one's going to reverse it except us. We're the ones that have to reverse it. Right? We have to go to the masses with ideology. I used to say for years, the problem is we need to be in the streets. That was our mantra, years coming out of the financial crisis, etc. We need to be in the streets. We need to build the movement, be in the streets. Well, that was wrong. Look, there is all kinds of protesting happening across the United States right now. People are protesting on Black Lives Matter. People are protesting against, immigrant rights, for immigrant rights. People are protesting against capitalism. There's labor struggles going on. Struggles happen naturally. They are spontaneous. The role of the vanguard, if you read What is to be Done by Vladimir Lenin, the role of the vanguard is not to make spontaneous struggles happen. That happens anyway. The role of the vanguard is to give an ideological orientation, to win the workers involved in these struggles, to understand that capitalism is the problem, and that socialism is the answer, to make sure that the spontaneity of the masses doesn't become hijacked by the old system and sucked into the old system, but rather to provide the ideology and understanding that leads the struggle of the masses toward the actual revolution that we need. That is the role of the vanguard party. The role of the vanguard party is not to build the movement. The movement builds itself. Protests happen. Demonstrations happen. When people are oppressed, they rise up. Mao in the Little Red Book, he said, where there is oppression, there is resistance. But resistance alone does not lead to socialism. It requires the intervention of those of us who understand what's going on and have the ideology. It requires an ideological shift. It requires us to go and lay the groundwork for the spontaneous uprisings of the masses to actually lead to something good, not lead to the dead end of the old system or libertarianism or whatever. This is pretty basic. In Russia, before the Russian Revolution, there was a group called the Black Hundreds Party. They were awful, anti-Semites, racist, reactionary. Lenin sent members of the Bolshevik Party to go to their meetings and argue with them and win them to socialism. And he didn't tell them to join the Black Hundreds Party. He didn't tell them to, say, oh, you guys are great, we're anti-Semites too. Of course he didn't say that. Lenin said to go find the workers who were in the Black Hundreds Party and win them away. And why did Lenin say that? And this is something that drives me crazy. Why did Lenin say that? Because the kind of people who can become left are the kind of people who can become far right. And that is something that people don't want to hear. People get really angry if you point that out. But it's true. It is absolutely true. The German Communist Party and the German Nazi Party recruited out of the same neighborhoods, folks. In Weimar, Germany, the Social Democratic Party, the reformist socialist party, was among the factory workers. And among the factory workers who were conservative, there was the Christian Democratic Party. Those were the mainstream parties. But among the desperately poor and unemployed, there was the Communist Party and the Nazi Party. Why? Because the Communist Party and the Nazi Party both talked about a revolution. The Communist Party and the Nazi Party both talked about destroying the current order. Just so happens the Nazi Party wanted to, carry out a revolution that was horrendous and killed millions of people and led backwards and tried to create some kind of medieval hierarchy and ultimately led to the Holocaust and the slaughter of millions of people. Communists, on the other hand, wanted a revolution that would totally overturn capitalism and create a whole new world. But people who were ready to fight were the kind of people that would join the Communist Party or the Nazi Party. However, the people who were comfortable and still had jobs in those factories, they were the comfortable, stable folks. They joined the Social Democratic Party or the Christian Democratic Party. Folks, this idea that people that might get taken in by right-wing demagogy should be canceled for the rest of time. No. I'm missing super chats here. Let me make sure. What would be an effective alternative to democratic centralism? Okay. I advise everyone to left-wing communism. Kayla, analysis on Russian protests. Dimitrov said infiltrate fascist groups. Okay, all right. So left-wing communism, just writing them down, right? Democratic centralism. Russian protests, and what was the last one? Let me see. Oh, Dimitrov, infiltrate. Infiltrate. So that's my point, folks. We need, the fact that this young man in Michigan, he's angry at the government, he's angry at the system. He should be angry at the system and become a communist. He shouldn't be angry at the system and become a Bugaloo boy. He shouldn't be angry at the system and become a libertarian. He should be angry at the system and become a communist. But if our approach is that nobody who ever, adopts these ideas is worth engaging with, and we should never learn to engage with these people, we should never learn to refute their arguments, then they're just going to keep becoming Bugaloo boys. They're going to keep becoming right-wingers, right? The fact that the communist movement has turned its back on the broad masses of people, failed to engage them, and this is leading to an epic disaster. The left is shooting itself in the foot. Look, folks, it's just sad, right? The internet censorship, right? There's silence in people, right? Trump, president of the United States, even when he was the president, before he left office, he was banned from Twitter, right? They can ban anybody from Twitter now for practically any reason. And YouTube and Facebook, they can just say, well, you're done. And I spoke out about this. A number of people spoke out about this and said, not good. And there are all these people on the left, oh, what are you defending right-wingers for? Oh. And what happened? What happened, folks? The British Socialist Workers' Party, well, they're gone. Now, Struggle La Lucha, the Socialist Unity Party, well, they're gone. Come on, folks. Folks, why do I have to sit here and tell this to you? Why is this not common sense? Right? Why is this not common sense? Why? Why does it take Caleb sitting here telling you this? I shouldn't have to tell you this, right? This should be pretty basic. If you empower the capitalist state to silence people, who are the enemies of the capitalist state? The communists. Come on, folks. It's not that hard to figure out. It's just, we have to get out of this rut, right? Politics in our time is not like going to a baseball game or a football game or a soccer game, right? If you're playing soccer, if you're playing football, you want the ref to make calls against the other team, and you don't want him to make calls on your team. And if the ref makes a bad call and it benefits your team, you applaud. If the ref makes a call that benefits the other team, often people will boo and not be happy about it. That's baseball, that's football, that's soccer, right? It's basketball, okay? But we need to get through our minds. Number one, the Democrats are not our team. Joe Biden is not our team. Kamala Harris is not our team, number one. Number two, the referee, i.e. Silicon Valley, i.e. the capitalist government, is our mortal enemy and wants to destroy us. Okay? So, no, we should not be cheering for the ref making bad calls against the other team. Doesn't benefit us, it benefits Joe Biden. And if they can do it to the other team, then they can do it to us because they are our sworn mortal enemy. Come on, people. It's basic. It's basic. It's basic. We shouldn't be supporting tech censorship at all, number one. Number two, there is nothing wrong with Jimmy Dore or Caleb Maupin or anybody engaging with Bugaloo Boys or right-wingers or white supremacists or whoever. Nothing wrong with it, right? Nothing wrong with it. If they were embracing their ideas and saying, libertarianism is the answer, or, white supremacism is the answer, obviously they wouldn't be on the left anymore. But engaging these people, no. And you'll notice, anytime any of these people talk to people, they immediately shout, see, they want to unite with the right. No, we don't. I don't want to unite with the right. I'm not saying we should form a united front with any of these right-wingers, but they shout that. Red-Brown Alliance, Red-Brown Alliance. I've told you all many times where the term Red-Brown Alliance comes from. Joanne is telling us that as a child, the Bugaloo Boy was raised by hippie parents in a commune. He should be a leftist. Yeah, except hippieism, the new left, is synthetic, right? And that's why it would lead to that conclusion, right? Hippieism is a distortion, right? And I think that shows how bankrupt the hippie counterculture kind of stuff is, that so many hippies grew up to be, right-wingers. But there you go. So that's my rant about Jimmy Dore. That's my opening rant. I'm sorry if I get a little frustrated there, but it must be said. I'm so sick of having to break this stuff down for people, right? That we have a problem. And that's why the Center for Political Innovation is so goddamn important. I hate to curse like that, but nobody else is going to do what we're going to do. Nobody wants to do it, right? Nobody wants to do it. So there you go. We have to get to the masses. We have to engage in education. We must conduct political innovation. So there you go. All right, names and locations, folks. I will call you out as I see you. Names and locations. Names and locations. Who's with us tonight? Names and locations. Tim Stacy in Kentucky. Pennsylvania, Man of Steel. Right? Norway, Arctic Angel. Orange Duke from Santa Clarita. Union, New Jersey. Carlos, New York. Jeff in Los Angeles. Brooklyn, New York. Tony S. Sina Beltway in the house. Max the Sax. Albany, New York. Northern Virginia. Washington State. Springfield, Missouri. Kieran from San Diego. Seattle, Washington. San Francisco. Bendigo, Australia. Los Angeles. Pepe in Santiago de Chile, Fresno, California, Toronto, Canada, Ithaca, New York, Nashville, Victoria from Louisville, Montreal, Australia, Dallas, Texas, Netherlands in lockdown, Madrid, Spain, Independence, Missouri, Rachel Martinez, good friend of the program, Bergen in Norway, interesting stuff, Pomona, California, Terre Haute, Indiana, Forsyth, Missouri, St. Paul, Minnesota, Adelaide, Australia, Oakland, California, Knoxville, Tennessee, Lockport, New York, Arthur Porter in Arizona, Auckland, New Zealand, Australia, Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, says Jose Gonzalez, Camas, Washington, USA. What else is new? Puerto Rico, France, Kendall from San Diego, howdy friends, Mohsen from Iran, Folkestone, Kent, England, Islands, I don't know how to say that. High Point, North Carolina. Kent, England, UK. Love your work, says Helen Woolley. Great friend of the program. Welcome, Helen, out in Australia. Joey from McKees Rocks, Jersey City, New Jersey. Aberdeen, Scotland. A lot of Missourians here tonight. Wow, my dad's family's from Missouri. Julian in Southeast UK. Memphis, Tennessee, right? What's this? I'm a 66-year-old disabled veteran of 12 years and dedicated supporting member of the Green Party. Welcome, Dennis. Welcome, welcome. Richie in Staten Island, Union, New Jersey, Aberdeen, Washington, Canary Islands, Spain. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Who else is with us tonight? Who else is here tonight? Harold Sullivan in Naples, Florida. Arklahoma. Joe Biden, friend of coronavirus. Republic of Kansas City. Kansas City. Liz and Bartso, Ireland and Poland. Italian communist now in the UK. Portland, Oregon. Much love, Comrade Lo-Fi. Munich, Illinois, says Hengley. Salford, England. Tennessee. Rachel Martinez. So many Maoists here in Missouri. Van News, right? Denver, Colorado. Finland. Bayonne, New Jersey. Dan Uko. Welcome, 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 welcome. Incheon, Korea. Welcome, welcome. Washington State. Happy to make your acquaintance. I'm glad you're here. Video with Jimmy. I'd love to be with Jimmy. That'd be great. Anybody? Sakhalin Islands, Russia, says Gary. Sauron from Dore, says David Fox. Tennessee again. Sweet Ring, says Harold Sullivan. Anybody else? Names and locations before we move on to all these great super chat questions you all have hit me with here. Anybody else? Names and locations. Lots of Tennesseans here. Good. Tennessee's a great state. I went there when I was a kid. I went to Knoxville. I think the first time I ever rode a public bus, right? I was a kid with my mom and my brother, and we rode on a public bus in Knoxville, Tennessee. Billings, Montana. Juan from Mexico. Incheon, Korea. Very good. Amsterdam. Davoud, East UK. Very good. Very, 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 very good. Excellent. Balthazar in Oakland. Tennessee, home of the revolution. Big artificial intelligence in Chichester, New York. Okay. Or no, Big Al. I thought it was Big AI. I'm sorry. Can we get internationally involved with the Center for Political Innovation? Yes, you can. Contact me. I've got people around the world who already want to start their own. So yes, you can. Yes, you can. All righty. So now we'll go on to the Super Chat questions. The CPI manual. It is in the process of being published. It will contain the first 100 pages of the City Builders and Vandals book. It will also contain some selections from Marx and Lenin and others. Farmers, New Delhi, Indian farmers. It will also contain some works from Marx and Lenin, Mao, and others, and it will have a study guide so that anyone can give classes with the book. That is the idea. And it'll be cheap. It won't be expensive because, we'll see what the ultimate print cost is. And if people want to contact me and order it in bulk, they can do that. And I can make a special arrangement with you if you want to order it in bulk. It'll be out probably next week, maybe a little bit later than that, but hopefully next week, fingers crossed. And it'll be the CPI Educational Manual. I'm not going to say the title yet because I don't want someone to run and, copyright the title or something, but it'll be out pretty soon. It's good. Some folks are working on it, and it's going to be good, right? I mean, it's good, and that'll enable you to do your own educational work on your own. So it's going to be very exciting, very, very exciting. Alrighty, folks. So that's the CPI manual. All right, left position on Belarus, Russia, Ukraine, etc. versus USA. Well, in Belarus, the biggest party is the Communist Party. Right? They're the biggest party in the Belarusian parliament. And they think the fact that, that Lukashenko has kept a state-run economy, full employment, guaranteed education, they think that's a good thing. Leftists here in the United States heard on CNN that Lukashenko is a dictator, and so they don't think that Lukashenko is good. In Russia, the Communist Party is considered an opposition party, but it has millions of members. It has seats in the parliament. I've been to their headquarters. I met Grudinin, their candidate in the last election. I met Zhuganov, who is their longtime leader. And they are very much a party that has a lot of seats. They are very much in support of Deng Xiaoping theory. Many members of the Russian Communist Party are Orthodox Christians, though many of them are atheists. There's division about that. And they are very supportive of China, and they are very much proud of Russia's history. They don't like Khrushchev very much. So yeah, that's the Russian Communist Party. It's got millions of members. It's a very big organization. Ukraine, right, in the eastern regions, you have the Communist Party of Ukraine. There's also the Popular Socialist Party of Ukraine, which was a party that broke away from the Communist Party. And then there's also, or it's the Progressive Socialist Party of Ukraine. And then you also have you have Borotba, which is like a youth activist, like kind of Trotskyite group, and they all are, they're anti-imperialist. So yeah, Borotba, Progressive Socialist Party, Communist Party of Ukraine. So there you go. Yeah, those are the parties. In the USA, look, in the USA, I tell people that in the USA, in a lot of ways, becoming a communist is like an expression of cultural alienation. For these people, it means you love your country, you love your community, you want to make your country and your community better, so you're involved in a group that's fighting for a better community, right? And that's what we need to get back to here in the United States. We need to get people to understand that communists are not trying to tear their neighborhoods apart. Communists are not trying to make their lives worse and shame them. Communists want a better country, and socialism will make a better country. Socialism is the road to a better, more prosperous future for the United States. And that's what the message of the communists in Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine is. And that's what the message of communists in the United States is. We need to stop putting out a message that is hostile to average Americans. We need average Americans to understand that socialism and ending imperialism will make their lives better. Seems pretty basic, but there's so much ideological confusion. And the new left is a very destructive force, the synthetic left, that is pessimistic and wants chaos and destruction. So, we got our work cut out for us. All right. William Z. Foster on Hamilton. Well, look, the Communist Party USA, I would say probably, they were wrong. Their assessment of American history, they argued there was what they called a Hamiltonian counter-revolution. Might be a trap. Quindy says, use the community tab to boost you in the algorithm. I don't know what the community tab means. I don't know what that means, but there you go. Someone sent me a super chat and I answered it. All right. But, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe button. That'd be great. I want to be boosted, right? William Z. Foster and Earl Browder and, many members of the Communist Party argued that there were two wings of the American Revolution and that the Jefferson wing was the progressive wing, and that the Hamilton wing was the reactionary wing. That analysis is wrong, okay? Actually, it's interesting. Michael Parenti's son, Christian Parenti, wrote a very good book called Revolutionary Hamilton. And Alexander Hamilton, I think, was the more progressive of the founding fathers of the United States. And that Jefferson, while it had kind of a populist edge to it, it was kind of settler populism for small farmers. He wrote about the yeoman, right? Those are small farmers. Jefferson argued the United States was going to be a country of small farmers. Every American family would have a father who had his own farm, and that doesn't last, right? Capital tends to centralize. There would be a flood or a drought or something, and eventually the land would end up in the hands of a few small people. That's just basic economics. And the yeoman fantasy, like every white settler has their own, tract of land, that is the basis of Jefferson, and it seems kind of populistic. It seems like the rights of man and the individual, but in a way, it's actually kind of, it's kind of confused and libertarian. Now, part of the reason that I think the Communist Party was confused about the role of Hamilton is because Hamilton was loved by some of the wealthy bankers, right, on Wall Street, right? Some of the Wall Street financial interests really liked Alexander Hamilton. Well, Alexander Hamilton's economic theory was about using government money to build infrastructure for the United States, namely lighthouses. Alexander Hamilton almost died on a ship when he was coming to the United States, and he really realized that lighthouses were important. And the ability of the government to levy taxes was limited, right? You remember the American Revolution happened because taxation without representation. So as the United States was emerging, they couldn't impose taxes. The ability of the federal government to levy taxes was limited. So by building lighthouses and by imposing tariffs on foreign imports, and by having the government subsidize domestic industries, the United States was able to prosper. So Alexander Hamilton, he understood economics enough to understand, Radical Hamilton, that's the name, by Christian Parenti. He understood economics enough to understand that if the United States was going to prosper as an independent economy, it needed the government to be actively involved, right? He rejected the Adam Smith free trade ideas, which is what the British were trying to impose on the United States. The British did not want the U.S. to have its own economy or its own industries or anything like that. They wanted the United States to just be a trading hub in the British global financial system. Hamilton said, no, we need a government bank that lends money and builds lighthouses and will pay for it with tariffs on imports, etc. And a lot of the Wall Street guys, the early Wall Street guys, we're talking like 1780s Wall Street, okay? This is like, they said, yeah, they realized that was good economics. The most important thing to understand about why Hamilton was the progressive and why Jefferson was the reactionary. The most important thing to understand is that Alexander Hamilton, wanted to recognize the Haitian government. Haiti had the first slave revolution. The slaves of Haiti broke their chains. The slave revolution of Haiti happened, and Alexander Hamilton stood alone saying that the USA should grant recognition to the revolutionary slave government of Haiti. And that, you think there's racism now, right? That was a tough stance to take, Imagine being in a parliament or in a meeting in a room full of southern plantation owners and slave owners, and getting up and saying the United States should recognize a Nat Turner regime. Do you think? That's really what Toussaint and the Haitian Revolution was. And Alexander Hamilton was adamant that was the hill he was going to die on. The USA should confer recognition on the black slave revolutionaries of Haiti. That is an anti-racist. That is a revolutionary if there ever was one. Seattle business interests want to remove Kshama Sawant. What do you think? What are your thoughts on that? All right. Kshama. All right. And so that is why I think Hamilton was good. He was opposed to slavery 100%. He wanted to recognize the Haitian government, and he understood economics. He didn't buy into free trade, Adam Smith malarkey that Jefferson bought into. He actually did believe, he understood that you need the government to spend money on infrastructure and such. So Hamilton was the more progressive figure among the founding fathers. However, it gets weird because Jefferson was always championing the yeoman, the small farmer, and Hamilton was tied in with some of these Wall Street guys who really wanted the USA to have a strong independent economy. It gets confusing. It gets very confusing. But at the end of the day, Hamilton, the Communist Party, William C. Foster, Earl Browder, they were wrong on that point. They were just wrong. And, people make mistakes. Look, see that? That doesn't make them Nazis. That doesn't make them Nazbols. Doesn't make them white supremacists and they're just wrong, okay? Hamilton was the revolutionary. Hamilton was the progressive wing of the American Revolution. It's confusing because of how there were divisions in the ruling class back then, just like now, and Hamilton was aligned with some people, and Jefferson was aligned with others, and it gets confusing, but at the end of the day, I argue that Hamilton was the progressive figure in the American Revolution, and that Jefferson was the more reactionary figure in the American Revolution. And again, people can disagree with me. I'm sure there are great communists out there. I've read writings from African-American communists who don't even agree with me and say, no, Hamilton was the reactionary, Hamilton was the elitist, whatever. Okay, we can disagree. At the end of the day, neither Hamilton nor Jefferson were ultimately progressive. They all believed in capitalism. Right? They all believed in private property and capitalism. They weren't communists and revolutionaries, right? Thomas Paine, as someone just mentioned in the chat, Thomas Paine advocated a guaranteed minimum income, and he was an abolitionist, but even he wasn't a socialist, right? He was more economically progressive, and he very much identified with the French Revolution and stuff. But even Thomas Paine was not a full-on socialist. So yeah, I mean, we should study all of this. Again, why? What is wrong with studying all this? It's like people on the left, we want to get this like adamant, I don't read any of the founding fathers are a bunch of racist, dead white guys. It's like, well, a lot of them were. They are racist, a lot of them. They were all white men, and they are all dead. But, Hamilton, knowing the difference between Jefferson and Hamilton is very important. Knowing the difference between Thomas Paine and Jefferson is very important. Knowing the difference between Benjamin Franklin and this is important stuff. If you're going to talk to Americans, you need to know American history, and you can't just sit on your self-righteous high horse. I don't know any of those racist white guys. Oh, good for you. All right, good for you. Here is a leftist cookie for you. I'm so proud of you. You have outdone everyone in the room. I am so proud of you. You've outdone everyone in the room. We're all nowhere near as ultra-revolutionary as you. We actually know American history, but you are able to go, I don't know nothing about those dead white men. All right, good for you, good for you. Here is a revolutionary leftist cookie for you, right? That's right, I'm tired of anti-intellectualism. Let me say that again. I'm really, really tired of people not being interested in knowing actual history. And again, I think William Z. Foster was the greatest American communist in U.S. history. But I think he was wrong about Alexander Hamilton. There you go. People can be wrong. All right. The Taft-Hartley Law, right? The Taft-Hartley Law restricts labor organizers. Well, here's the thing you have to remember about the Taft-Hartley Law. The Democrats have been promising to overturn the Taft-Hartley Law for a long time, and they haven't. Obama told the labor bureaucracy that he was going to pass the Employee Free Choice Act. All right, so, it's so sad. A lot of people in the United States don't even know what a labor union is. That's how weak the labor movement is in the United States. But let's talk about the Taft-Hartley Law, or the Taft-Hartley Slave Labor Bill, as the Communist Party used to call it. Back in 1948, in the middle of McCarthyism and the witch hunt, they passed a law that greatly restricted the ability of labor unions in the United States to organize. It was called the Taft-Hartley Law. It was named after Senator Taft, who was a big libertarian. Libertarians love Taft. Well, Taft was a reactionary, and Taft, that libertarian Taft, passed this Taft-Hartley Law. The Taft-Hartley Law, the first thing that it does is it gets rid of what's called card check. So the way that it used to work was if you had a factory and 51% of the workers in the factory signed a card saying they wanted union representation, that was automatic. They got union representation. If the majority of the workers, 51%, signed a card and said, I want union representation, they got it. Well, the Taft-Hartley Law changed that. Unionizing a workplace in the United States is now a 2-year process in which the National Labor Relations Board oversees this very long, complicated process that makes it very difficult to unionize a workplace. Now, how is that democratic? If the majority of people in any workplace want to join a union, and they sign something that says join a union, let them. What's wrong with that? They call it card check. What's wrong with that? Well, you can't do it. That's the first problem with it. The second problem with the Taft-Hartley labor law is that it outlaws solidarity strikes. Right? These are called solidarity strikes. So, right? This is the story of the labor movement. Right? The pipe fitters are on strike. And so the truck drivers, the pipe fitters are out on strike. And so the company hires some other pipe fitters that are, not in the union to do it. Well, the truck drivers are driving by and they see that the pipe fitters are out on strike. And they say, well, we're not going to deliver. Right? We don't cross a picket line. We're not going to deliver. Right? And the truck drivers, they go on strike in solidarity with the pipe fitters. That's illegal in the United States now. You're not allowed to have a solidarity strike. You're only allowed to strike over the conditions in your own workplace. Right? Well, how is that fair? How is that fair, right? How is that fair? right? I mean, striking is nothing but withholding your labor. I think workers should be able to go on strike about whatever they want. It's up to the workers, right? If the truck drivers want to go on strike in support of the pipe fitters, they should have the right, but they should have the right not to, too. No one should make them go on strike. But if the truck drivers want to strike in solidarity with the pipe fitters, the truck drivers can strike in solidarity with the pipe fitters. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Well, that's illegal. The Taft-Hartley Law enables bosses to sue labor unions for unfair labor practices. Basically, if a labor union has a solidarity strike or something like that, the union can be sued by the employer, and all kinds of money from the labor union dues can actually go into the pockets of the bosses as a penalty. This is unbelievable. Yeah, the Taft-Hartley Law is awful. Now, during the Obama years, Obama promised that he was going to sign something called the Employee Free Choice Act, right? And that would be a law that restored the right of workers to decide how they want to pick a union. That if workers want to have a card check union process, if they want to have a formal election, it wasn't to restore card check like there was during the pre-Taft-Hartley period, but it would allow the workers on the job to decide how they wanted to unionize. Obama got elected, and everyone said, yes, we can, and it was so great, and the AFL-CIO and Richard Trumka went out there, and he gave this speech about, Obama, and Obama got in there, and, slipped his mind. He forgot about it. Oh, and just, he's got a lot to worry about, bombing Libya and bombing Syria and drones, and, he had a lot on his mind, right? He had so many wars to wage and people to torture and stuff like that. So Obama just forgot about it. Another thing that Obama said when he was president was that if ever there were union workers that were protesting for their right to have a union, he would march on the picket lines with them. And then you'll remember in 2011 in Wisconsin, they were trying to bring an anti-labor right-to-work law in Wisconsin, and there was this huge occupation of the Capitol, of the U.S. Capitol. And Obama said nothing about it. Obama never walked the picket lines with them. Obama stabbed the labor unions in the back. Look, coming from me, it doesn't mean much, right? They're just going to say Caleb's a communist, whatever, don't listen to him. But look, forget the communism, forget the class struggle. If I was a labor union bureaucrat, if I was just a labor boss, I didn't care anything about communism, didn't care anything about socialism, I was just the head of the, Teamsters or the AFL-CIO, I would sit there and go, Democrats, you've been promising us that you're going to get rid of Taft-Hartley. You haven't done it. You've been promising us that over and over and over again, and you haven't done it. But we keep giving all of our members' dues money to the Democrats. We keep, mobilizing all our rank and file to go campaign for you guys. And you don't do anything for us. Maybe we're going to give our money and our support to the People's Party. We're going to endorse, the new party that's been formed by, Cornel West and some of these other people. Yeah, maybe we'll do that this time. And, if you Democrats actually want to pass the Employee Free Choice Act, then, come back and see us and we'll renegotiate this. But this relationship that the Democratic Party and the labor bureaucracy have, it's suspended. It's on hold, right? We're going to start seeing other people. But if you want us back, there is that thing called the Employee Free Choice Act. And if you pass that, we'll be back in business. Right now, there's no excuse. The Democrats control the House of Representatives. They control the Senate. They control the White House. But where's the employee? I don't hear Biden even talking about the Employee Free Choice Act. So there you go. Overturn Taft-Hartley. It's pretty basic. Taft-Hartley is not just it's not just an anti-labor law. It's a violation of basic democratic rights. Taft-Hartley says that, hey, you are not allowed. You can't have automatic representation. You can't have solidarity strikes. Oh, did I forget the best part of Taft-Hartley? Best part, not the best part, but the president has the right to end a strike. The president of the United States can end a strike by decree. Did you know that? The president of the United States can say, no more strike. Right? That is, it calls it a cooling off period. So a bunch of workers are on strike. The president can say, you know what? No, forget it. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. No, and yeah, yeah, it's an anti-labor law. It's undemocratic. And again, what is a strike? A strike is a worker withholding their labor. Well, where are the libertarians on this? Where's Tom Woods and the John Birch Society saying, what? The government makes people work? People have the right to withhold their labor. It's a transaction, remember? No. Where are the libertarians on this? Libertarians should be outraged by the Taft-Hartley Law, right? Because they're all about, there should be no restrictions on personal interactions, right? So if that means I'm a worker and me and the other workers want to withhold our labor, there should be no restriction on that, right? Oh, it doesn't apply to that. Oh, that's because all the libertarian think tanks are paid for by big corporations and fracking companies and stuff. Oh, right. That's, yeah. So, yeah, there you go. But yeah, the Taft-Hartley Law, yeah, it's a huge restriction on the rights of organized labor. But the labor bureaucracy, I'm sorry, but, I hate to be crass here, but some of these labor bosses need to pull their heads out of their you-know-whats, okay? They need to pull their heads out because they're losing. They're losing, right? They give all their money to the Democrats. Organize the Democrats. And the Democrats say, thanks for that money. To see you next election. And, look, and it's just, I'm not arguing with them as a communist. I'm not arguing with them as a radical. Forget all of that. Just from basic self-interest. What are you doing? What are you doing? Handing all the money over to the Democrats and getting nothing in return. What are you doing? What are you doing? David Fox says that if there's unity against a common foe, we should sit down with them. And I agree, right? I agree. If it comes to, protesting things, like protesting for, against these wars and stuff, I would never want to embrace the far right and their ideology. But if somebody who's a libertarian or is confused, wants to oppose war or something, we don't need to spit on them if they're just ideologically confused. All right. Do you have to be a communist to be in CPI? No. What do you mean by communist, though? Right? There's a lot of people who will tell me, well, I'm a socialist and not a communist. And I'll say, what do you mean? And I say, well, I believe in God. Well, I believe in God too, but I'm a communist. They say, well, I'm a socialist, not a communist, in that I don't think the way the Soviet Union did things is the way we necessarily need to do things here. Well, I think that the way the Soviet Union did things is definitely not the way we need to do things here. Socialism is different in every country. It is changing and adjusting and adapting. And, so I don't know what you mean, do you have to be a communist? But, if you agree with generally what CPI is putting out, you're welcome to be part of it. I don't know what you mean by not being a communist. I think a lot of people are communists and don't realize it. That's what Elizabeth Gurley Flynn said. She wrote a pamphlet called Meet the Communists. It's a very good pamphlet. People should look it up. I think it's on archive.org, where Elizabeth Gurley Flynn says that a lot of people are communists and don't know it yet. And I agree with her. I think that is absolutely the case. I think a lot of people are communists and don't know it that. And that is why we need to get to the masses and get to the people that are already basically where we're at and don't know it yet. Alrighty. Is this a Nazbol ring? No. Is it a Nazgul ring? No. This ring has nothing to do with the National Bolshevik Party of Russia, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So, yeah, it's a ring that I like to wear, and that's that. Alrighty. David Fox recommended people read Left-Wing Communism. Great book, Left-Wing Communism and Infantile Disorder. Great book by Lenin. It's very to the point, very short, gets to the point. Point is, you go where people are and you win them to socialism. You go where people are at and you win them to socialism. If there's a labor union and those workers are in that labor union, join that labor union and win them to socialism. If there's an election, run a communist candidate so that people hear about your candidate and become convinced to be socialists. If there is a mass progressive campaign that the right wing is mobilizing against, and the candidate doesn't happen to be a socialist, but it's the workers are identifying with them and the bosses are out to get them, join that campaign, endorse that candidate so you can win those workers to socialism. The problem with left-wing communism, it's not really with left-wing communism, the problem with American communists is they have two attitudes toward that book. The general attitude you get towards that book is, I remember the RCP, the Revolutionary Communist Party, they say they don't recommend that book. They say that book is not very Leninist, we don't recommend it. I mean, it's just like and it's like, why? It says the exact opposite of what they do. They don't do anything with labor unions. They don't do anything with elections. So, I mean, okay. And then you have certain people that hold up that book and say, see, vote for the Democrats. See, just do whatever the labor bureaucracy says. And it's like, no, the idea is you join the existing labor unions to win the people there to communism. You run and participate in elections to win people to communism. You endorse sometimes non-communist candidates to win people to communism, right? And so you get the second group of people that wave that book around to say whatever, and they forget the second part. They think the book just says, be a liberal. Well, no, it doesn't say be a liberal. It says, never put on any unnecessary barrier between yourself and the working class. That's what the book says. The book says, never should you put an unnecessary barrier between yourself and the workers. And it's right. It's absolutely right. Never. Do you think the state would stop a general strike? Of course I do. But, we'll write that down. General strike. Never put an unnecessary barrier between yourself and the workers, right? Go to where the workers are at and win them to socialism. That's the point of the book of Left-Wing Communism, and I recommend reading it. Democratic centralism. I've talked about this many times, but the concept of democratic centralism is based on the idea that Lenin went around to all these great revolutionaries in Russia and got them in one organization, got them to combine their efforts, got them to have debate, but unity in action. Once a decision was reached, everyone was obligated to carry it out, and it worked. It was a great way of doing things. However, in the United States, democratic centralism generally leads to crazy factions, and we have a million little parties, and democratic centralism in the United States, it leads to crazy, little personality cults. Basically, democratic centralism in the United States means there's one smart person in our group, and that person decides what we do, and if you're a smart person and you disagree with that person, well, you got to leave and start your own group, and that's what happens, and that's why there's 500 gazillion little tiny Trotskyist cults, and they're all irrelevant, because they're all democratic centralist. It means don't disagree with me and you're out, basically. Well, I mean, look, democratic centralism, in essence, it means, number one, that all the people in the group, whether they agree with the decision that's made or not, they carry it out, okay? And the fighting and disagreements are kept internal, and there's one face to the masses. That second part, the fighting and disagreements are kept internal. I mean, okay, you shouldn't air your dirty laundry in front of everybody. But one face to the masses? No. I'm sorry. With Facebook and Twitter and no, right? Back then that meant we have one newspaper, but no. Look, people are going to disagree, right? And you obviously want, a coherent message, what the group stands for, but the idea that, everyone is going to exactly speak the party line on Facebook. No one will ever say no, come on. Not in our time. That's not going to work, right? Not going to work, right? And that's generally how, it's outdated. Look, it's outdated. With modern information technology, the same for the whole agitation propaganda model, right? That's not going to work. You only propagate to the advanced, that's not going to work, right? People are going to know who you are. There's a lot of this stuff is a little bit outdated. It needs to be discussed, right? And this is why I'm forming the Center for Political Innovation, a think tank, so we can talk about how do we apply these principles in our time, how do we adjust them for our time. But no, the fetish for democratic centralism in the United States has been an epic disaster. It's been an epic disaster. Anyone who's been in any of these groups will tell you how much of a disaster democratic centralism is. And it leads to a million little parties that are the ego trips of some old boomers and don't get anything done. All righty. Oh, boy. All right. The Russian protests that just happened. Well, I did a whole live about them. Navalny, he's not the representative of the Russian opposition. There are many different opposition groups in Russia. The Communist Party, the Liberal Democratic Party. There are youth activist groups. There are all kinds of people in Russia with all kinds of disagreements. Navalny is America or the United States man. I saw that the first time, Austin. And I wrote it down. All right, is the United States man, right? That's who he is, right? Biden apparently talked about him on the phone. The U.S. State Department loves Navalny. He's all about destabilizing Russia. He's an ethno-nationalist. This is, And the thing is, most Russians don't support him. I mean, polls show like less than 14%, and I've heard it's even lower than that, sympathize with him. So he has no chance of winning or succeeding. It's just about causing trouble. This is the old color revolution playbook. This is the U.S. imperialists are mad at Russia, so they're going, see what we did? See what we did? Look, we're causing trouble in your country. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? That's all that's going on here. And it's sad. And it's sad to see these Russian young people, a lot of whom have, some legitimate criticisms. They're mad about legit things, being used as pawns like this, right? Especially if they get hurt in these protests and stuff, right? Again, they're being used. They're being, and this is the same thing that happened during the Cold War with the color revolutions and the protests in 1989, the Prague Spring in 68, is that a lot of people that probably have some legit grievances, some real issues to be angry with, are being used, and they're being duped and manipulated by the Western imperialists that just want to tear down. They don't like the fact that Russia's a strong, independent country again. They want to tear it down. They loved Russia when it was starving and dying under Yeltsin, but now that Putin has fixed the economy up and made Russia a strong country, and now that Russia's selling oil and gas on the international markets and building Nord Stream 2, they're angry, and they want to, so... Yeah, Dimitrov said to infiltrate fascist groups. Did he say that? I mean, I've read many places that communists in fascist countries, when there was a fascist state, like in Italy or in Germany, communists would join the official fascist union because they had to. But within the fascist union, they would organize and get class struggle going because they had no other choice. I've also read Dimitrov talk about how it's really, really important to make sure that the fascists are not able to hijack the national narrative of the country. This is a very important thing that Dimitrov talks about. The fascists and the far right claim that they are the inheritors of Germany's great legacy, or Italy's great legacy, or France's great legacy, or the United States' great legacy. And it's important for communists to say, no, we are the inheritors of the country's great legacy. Right? That's in Dimitrov, very clearly stated, right? That the fascists shouldn't be able to claim that they're the real patriots. The communists should be the real patriots. The fascists shouldn't be able to say that, if you're a loyal French person, you're a fascist. The communists should say, no, if you're a loyal French person, you should be a communist. That the biggest mistake, one of the biggest mistakes that the communists in Germany made is they handed Germany's history over to the Nazis. Right? That the German communists had this, workers have no country line. And so the Nazis claimed they were the representatives of Germany's history, and they weren't. But the communists handed that history over. Thank you, Dennis, for your super chat. They handed it over. They said, we have no country, German, down with the German, and the Nazis were able to say, look, we're the true Germans. And the communists during the 1930s, after they learned from that mistake, they said, no. In the United States, they used to say, they used to say that if Washington and Jefferson and Lincoln were alive today, they would be members of the Communist Party. Communism is nothing but 20th century Americanism. Why did they say this? Because the fascists were saying stuff like that. And they were saying, no. Right? Most people don't hate the country that they live in. Most people are not wanking to Jay Sakai 24/7. Most people are not determined to have all their friends on Facebook think that they're the most woke activist in the world. Most people live in a community or a city or a state or a province or a country, and they want that city or state or province or country to get better. And the duty of communists is to show them that communism and socialism is about making that life better. And, that is what is missing. Fascists often presented as, look, I just want to make the country better. Communists have to say the same thing. And we have to expose that the fascists won't make the country better, that we will. I mean, come on, folks. Come on now. All right. Indian farmers. Yes, the Indian farmers continue to be rising in struggle. Look, the neoliberal reforms. Third parties in debates. Third parties in debates. The neoliberal reforms that Modi is bringing in are horrendous for the Indian farmers. It's a huge giveaway to Monsanto and agribusiness. And the Indian farmers are rising and protesting, and it's not going to end. Shama Sawant. Well, I don't take positions on any election in the United States. I do not endorse any candidate. But I can understand why the business community would not like Shama Sawant, right? That she's someone who's associated with labor unions. She's a Trotskyite, but her getting elected, I think, was probably a good sign. It showed that a lot of workers were open to socialist messages, that in a city like Seattle, and enough workers could vote for a socialist. I think that showed that people were sympathetic. And if the business community, like Amazon and others, are able to depose Shama Sawant, that would show that the working class movement is weaker. Look, and again, see, Shama Sawant doesn't agree with me about China. She is very, very anti-China. Shama Sawant doesn't agree with me about a lot of things. She's a Trotskyite. But if they were able to unseat her, that would probably be a defeat for the workers' movement of Seattle. That would be a defeat. And I don't think that would be a good thing. I'm not going to cancel Shama Sawant just because she doesn't agree with me. I've met Shama Sawant. She's a very friendly woman. She knows who I am. I know who she is. I don't endorse any candidate. Let me emphasize that. I don't campaign for anybody, so I'm not endorsing her. I'm not campaigning for her. But if she were to lose, that would be a defeat for the working class movement. And again, I don't agree with her. And she doesn't agree with me, but we can get over that, right? This is like real world organizing. Off of the internet, when people actually try to get things done, they work with people they sometimes disagree with. So, no, I don't think it would be a good thing for Shama Sawant to be defeated. But, there you go. Does the Center for Global Development serve U.S. imperialism? All right. Center for Global Development. I'm going to have to end this pretty soon, but we'll get through the rest of these super chats. All righty. Would the state and the United States suppress a general strike? Absolutely. Absolutely it would. No question about it. I mean, why wouldn't they, right? Third parties in the United States. How do you get them into debates? Well, look, for a third party in the United States to actually be successful, it would need to be a significant break from the existing parties, right? Someone starting a party in their basement is never really going to be acknowledged. But if the Democrats cracked into two, the labor wing and the centrist wing, Republicans cracked into two, the Trump wants to start his Patriot Party, that would be an opening. But for there to be a real third party in the United States, it would have to be kind of a break. It would have to have roots high up in the political structures of the United States. It would have to have members of Congress that were in it and such. Before it would be taken seriously, unfortunately. The two-party system is awful, but I'm just acknowledging the reality of how things work, unfortunately. If the third party in the United States was going to be taken seriously, it would have to be a split from one of the existing parties. All right. I don't know what the Center for Global Development is, so I can't comment on that. Sorry that I can't give you an answer there, Chaya, but I just don't know enough about it, and so I'll have to look into it. But there you go. Folks, I thank you for joining me. It's been a lovely afternoon. I'm glad we could have this conversation. My best wishes to you and everything that you're doing. Let's build our community. Let's tweet this out. Let's spread the word. I hope to be back on here. I'm going to do a patrons-only stream before the end of the month, probably over the weekend, so stay tuned for that. If you're a patron, sign up if you want to be included. There you go, folks. A new upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression, but the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. While the danger of a new world war still exists, the people of all countries must get prepared. Revolution is the main trend in the world today. While the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared. Revolution is the main trend in the world today. Have a good evening, folks. We need a government of action to fight for working families.